What if the person who hurt you the most in your life also gave you your life's purpose? Today's guest, Dr. Robert Bleck, who's a psychologist, an author, and creator of the Source Completion Therapy System, lived through unthinkable abuse and then turned that pain into a mission to help thousands heal. This episode, it's going to shake you, inspire you, and maybe even start your healing process too. Let's dive in.
It was just about every day I was beaten, degraded, or abused. That's what it felt like. And all of a sudden, she's stirring it and she turns towards me and she says, I'm going to cook you first and then I'm going to eat you.
Some people can't get over it. He just,
Mhm.
sorry, he never healed. So mentally, he cracked in his
Mm.
own way. This is From Wounds to Wisdom with Barbie Moreno. Real talk, deep healing, and stories that turn pain into power. Let's dive in. Thank you for coming on the show, Dr. Robert Bleck. We appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting me. My pleasure to be here.
When we first talked prior to today, I was just telling you that I wrote down nail biting. So, like, your experience is one that definitely will keep people interested because yeah, it was just horrendous. And you've done a lot of work to help people, including developing a system or for helping people. But if you don't mind, I would really just like to get to know you, your experiences, and then we can go on to see, how what system you've developed for people.
Sure. So the start of my life is really difficult and painful for me. My mother, who was abused herself as a child, was filled with anxiety and rage and anger, and that fury came out on me very often.
Mm.
In fact, it was just about every day I was beaten, degraded, or abused. That's what it felt like. Now, the beatings came either from her open hand, slapping me, or it came from a closed fist. And she would pummel me, and I would go on the floor and roll into a little ball, trying to flail out and try to protect myself, starting at about 3. So that certainly was painful and terrifying and scary, and I endured that. The humiliation came also, because those beatings and degradation, um, it caused symptoms for me. I was terrified at night. I had to sleep with a light on. I was scared of the dark. I bit my nails to where the cuticles were bleeding, and I bit them down to where you hardly saw the nail. And sometimes they get infected,
Mm.
and they would take me to the doctor, and he'd have to, it was like gangrene. He'd have to slice it with a scalpel and get the pus out, and that was painful. So that was my anxiety as a child. I had nightmares, horrible nightmares, where either monsters were chasing me, or there was one recurring nightmare that I had for years. In the back of the apartment where we lived, this was the dream. In front of me, about maybe 25 feet, 30 feet, was this big cauldron, black cauldron,
Mhm.
and a witch was stirring the cauldron.
Mm.
And she looked like the witch in The Wizard of Oz, the big hat and the cape, the black cape. And all of a sudden, she's stirring it, and she turns towards me, and she says, I'm going to cook you first, and then I'm going to eat you.
Ooh.
So that was really scary, and I had that for years. I endured it.
Before you
Mm.
continue, do you
So
know where your mom's rage came from?
from her mother, her mother abused her
Mm.
terribly.
Yeah. So this is the generational trauma that we often hear about and talk about.
Correct, and she just passed it on to me. I mean, I had a sister who was 4 years younger. She didn't beat my sister, but she verbally abused her.
Yeah.
And some
It
of my
went.
regrets I have about my sister, which we can get into as I get older, I have regrets of that. I would have liked to have helped my sister more when I was out of there.
Well, I mean, so let's go back to like the psychology of that, right? Like
Yeah.
analyzing that. You were a child.
Yes,
You were trying to survive.
correct.
And so, although the hindsight is, oh, I wish I would have helped my sister. I mean, you were a child.
I know when I got older, it was when I went to college and I got out of the house. That was when I th think I could have helped her. And I'll get into it more with you. As a child, I knew I couldn't do anything, and I had to get out of the house
Yeah.
to save myself.
Yeah.
So if you go forward a few years, again, I felt trapped. I felt like I was in prison. I felt anxious every day. I wet my bed too.
Mm.
And how she degraded me with that, I waited until 7. I was 7 years old. How she degraded me, that's where the degradation and the humiliation came in. I would be with friends in the house, maybe some friends came over or family members, and she'd come into the room, and when I was talking to them, and say, Robert, by the way, I want you to be aware you wet your bed again last night. So
Mm.
she would do that in front of people and friends, and I felt just like I wanted her just hard, and it was really shameful.
And I know you said that let's talk about, I don't want to give away the part, but there was a bed involved and um
Yeah, right.
things that happened there.
Yeah, what she did, at times, I was just 3 or 4 because my sister wasn't born that yet. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I went into their room, my parents' room. I wanted some kind of comfort. I don't remember exactly what comfort. Maybe it was that dream of the witch,
Hmm.
because I know I had that constantly. And they didn't like it. My mother didn't like to be inconvenienced, and that was horrible for her. So she took me back into my room, put me on the bed, and then tied me. The ropes went under the bed and across my chest a number of times to where I couldn't get out, and it was really hard to move. And I think I was screaming. I can remember it. I see some of it in my mind because eventually they untied me. And I don't know what happened from there, but it was really traumatizing. I was trapped. I felt I was going to die. So
As
it
a
was
mother,
horrible.
like when you say that, it literally brings tears to my eyes because, well, one, I have children and one's 17 and one's 11, and they still try to come in the bed, right?
Right, of
So,
course.
I mean, that's what they do. That's what
Yes,
we do as children is we want that
correct.
comfort, we want that security, we want to know that our parents are there for us, and especially at such an early age, right?
Correct.
And having nightmares, and then to be tied to your bed.
Right.
Well, no wonder why you wet the bed,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly. Well, I had all this anxiety, and that was part of it. It just came out. Yes,
Mm.
that way. And the biting the nails and the nightmares, that was the anxiety, just flowed forth. And
Where was your dad?
my dad, my dad is an interesting man. He was a decent man, a kind man. He saved me in some ways. He didn't hit me and he didn't degrade me, and I could talk to him, but he didn't protect me enough.
Right.
And I talked to him later as part of my therapy that I developed for others, but I use it to heal myself as well. So
When you talk to him, can you tell us about that? Like, I mean, where's his ownership in it?
well, when I talked to him later in life, when I was out of the house, I would say, "Where were you? Oh, I was beaten. I was abused. Where were you?" And he said he didn't realize that the abuse was so extensive.
I hate that.
Yeah, I didn't like it either.
Yeah.
I didn't like it either.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, and you hear that a lot. Like, when, let's say, children are being molested by one of the parents, and then the other parents will say, I didn't know. Come on.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I agree. He was kind to me, so I said, well, I believe he could have done more, Dad, because the third part of my therapy, there's 3 phases in the therapy, is to confront the person who abused you or hurt you and tell
Yeah.
them how you feel about what they did. And I said, I was scared. I was entrapped, and I was being beaten and humiliated and degraded. He said, all the fights I had with your mother was about you. I said, but you didn't step in enough. In fact, some of my relatives knew what was happening, and they confronted him, and still nothing happened. He didn't do much of anything. So
I
that
think that
continued.
that has to do to, I was talking with somebody about this the other day. There are generations that as the generations progress, so like the kids nowadays, my generation before your generation, all of those different things, it seems as time has progressed, we've had less and less tolerance for this kind of stuff. Not to say that
Right,
doesn't happen because it still does. But
right.
would you say that in your generation it was simply just kind of basically not talked about, kind of overlooked, kind of that kind of thing?
Well, I didn't overlook it certainly. So
Yeah, of
I
course.
started talking about it. My relatives didn't overlook it because my mother, she became rageful to those people who were trying to step in. to talk to my father. So they didn't overlook it either. And
But
so
there's like a level of, like, not to cut you off, but there's a
oh,
level of
sure.
responsibility, right? So,
Correct.
for example, if I saw my neighbor or a family member and I knew these things were happening to them, at some point, I'm not just going to say stop doing that. I'm going to actually physically do something, whether it's turn them into child protective services, whether it's call the police on them, whatever it is. I'm not just going to have a conversation.
I agree. And that's what would happen now in today's day. It
Yeah,
wasn't happening those years.
right. That's what I was
Um,
asking. Yeah,
right. So I had to just figure out a way out, a
yeah,
way out. And I had to figure out how I'm going to survive. As a child, I was fortunate in one way, very fortunate. Most of the people I work with have been abused and traumatized, just about all of them. That's what I
yeah.
do. And they feel that they were at fault. They were defective, they were inadequate, something was wrong with them. I didn't feel that way. I felt something was wrong with her.
Mm,
So that was able to motivate me to grow and to figure out a plan. Fast forward to about 9 years old. What started happening at 9 years old? Um, I was very deeply touched and filled with compassion and sensitivity by people who were struggling or suffering in some way.
mm.
Whether it was an injustice I saw at school, a child being bullied, or death or grief in some way, or something unfair, I was always disturbed by that. And I believe that that was the foundation of my life and my life's work. About 9 years old, that was it. I remember I was sick one day. I stayed home from school and I watched, it was in black and white. It was the original Les Miserables
Hmm.
uh, by Victor Hugo, and it was about the misery of the French people in the 1800s. And it's centered around two characters. The first one, he stole a piece of bread because everybody was in poverty to feed his family. And the other one, the other character chases him throughout his life to punish him and put him into jail. And I still remember to this day, just tears. Tears were falling from my eyes, 9 years old. And I said, maybe I could do something to help humanity. So it was starting, the rumbles were starting in my mind.
Thank goodness that you had the ability to perceive that it wasn't you and that it was her at such an early age, because most children internalize it as something's wrong with them.
They do. And the ones I work with do as well. I was just fortunate. I don't know if it was in my DNA. I don't know the reason, but I never felt it was me.
I love
Uh,
that though. I mean, that's amazing because it's not common. So you said
I
you
agree.
wish you could have done more for your sister.
Yeah, so you're right. Well, I'm going to say that as I get out of the house, and then that's where it happened. So I had a plan to get out of the house. I had to figure out how do I survive my mother. So what I got into was sports. I started to play sports, starting at 9, 10. It started with Little League. Then as I got a little older, it was soccer. I played soccer and I played ice hockey, and I became decent and good, and that got me out of the house. It got me playing with team members, and there was a camaraderie I had, and I felt confident, and I felt started that I was getting stronger. That got me out of the house. It got me into a mode that I can do this. I could survive. And then at around 14, my mother, she was hitting me in my teens too, but at 14, she started to come towards me with a fist, and I put up my hand, my palm, like that, and I said, no, no more. You can't hit me anymore. I'm stronger now. I'm not going to take it, and I'll defend myself. So that's the words I remember to this day. She looked right in my eyes, turned around, walked away, and she never came near me again with fists
Mm.
or hitting me. Again, I wasn't hit since 14. I figured, how do I get to college? So because my parents didn't have much money, so I had to figure out work all the time. I could work, save some money. I became a waiter, a busboy. I worked as an ice cream scooper in an ice cream store. I worked at a dry cleaning store. And I saved money. I saved money for myself. I became a lifeguard at times at a camp and with safety swim instructor. So I earned money. I saved the money. And I was able to get a scholarship, a New York scholarship for tuition. And I had some extra money to pay for other things. I had a choice. I could go, I was thinking maybe medicine helping humanity, the doctor, medical doctor with psychology. And so I took both at the start. I took pre-med courses and I took psychology courses. Pre-med didn't feel right. The psychology courses felt right. And I went there and I graduated with a major in psychology. And then I went on for my PhD in counseling. And again, I support myself getting the PhD. I worked at the university as a grad assistant, and I was able to, when I started working there as a counselor in the town. I took students who were interns, and that paid for my tuition for the
Mm,
PhD. So
nice.
I earned all that. I worked hard at it, and I was proud of it.
So through all of this, did you have any mental breakdowns or any depression or any anxiety? Like you seem like you're coping very well during this story, right?
Yes,
And I can imagine that you probably coped better than most, but where was your mindset in all of
it's a
these
really
different things?
good question.
Yeah.
I had anger that I didn't like, and I had frustration. I had irritability.
Hmm.
I knew that I had those things, and I knew even though I'm escaping my mother and I'm in college, I didn't like those things. So I knew that I had more work to do.
Hmm.
But I pushed through school. I pushed through college and grad school. And I'll tell you where the hard stuff came out. I am out of school and I started working at schools, going as a counselor, social worker. And I started then after that, I worked in clinics. Then I became a professor at a university where I was training the graduate students to be counselors and therapists. I did that. And then I started to get referrals um, from people that were abused. And I went into private practice with that. I opened up a private practice. And I wasn't satisfied with the way they were healing. They weren't, I was trained in a lot of therapies and I was using it, but I didn't think any of them went deep enough. They didn't go deep enough for the people I was working with, and they didn't go deep enough for me. I created a three-phase process that was a deep cleansing and that I thought was really comprehensive. And that's the therapy that I work with now. But what was happening also to me with all the people that I was getting as referrals, it was getting to me, the pain that they were suffering, and I knew my anger wasn't finished, so I needed to work on that. So it became overwhelming to me at times, and I I wasn't sleeping. I lost sleep, and I was irritable, and I pushed people away. I was pushing people away. I didn't trust people to be close to me.
Hmm.
I didn't trust them to not hurt me.
Obviously, yeah.
Right. So I knew I needed to work on that. So I did work on that. But eventually, all the people that I was working with, their pain and my pain, I wasn't sleeping, and I was irritated and irritable, and it was very painful. I got some medication to help me with the sleep, and I kept working on my issues, and that meant going back in time. Okay, part in this second phase of my therapy, I have everybody go back in time, close their eyes, they visualize through self hypnosis or hypnosis the trauma. There's a lot. If there are many scenes, they visualize those. If there's one particular scene, they visualize that. So however they want to do it. They go back in time and they see all the sights, they feel all the feelings, they smell all the smells, they hear all the sounds, and that brings the feelings up. In the third phase of the therapy, they confront the person who hurt them by giving them feedback. You know,
Hmm.
Dad, when you came home and all drunk, we were all frightened, terrified of you. I ran into my room because I thought I was going to be killed. And I want to let you know that. So that's just an example. And so they people that I work with, sometimes the parents who hurt these people or the grandparents or uncles, they want to come to the therapy and they're willing to hear it. Other times they don't. But the ones that come, sometimes it's successful in terms of the person who's giving the feedback because it gets the feelings out. And sometimes there's a second gain that the person who is the perpetrator owns it, owns what they did, and starts to, have the remorse.
What
That's a
happens if they
second gain.
don't in that situation?
And it's not important in my therapy. What's important, what's most significant is them getting the feelings out. So
Mm.
that's the most important thing.
Because they've
Not that
suppressed
they,
them.
yes, so they get it out.
Hmm.
I'm interested in healing the person before me.
Hmm.
Um, some people, they talk about forgiveness. I don't think that could really take place if you have all this anger and stuff. If you get it out and then maybe you want to forgive, but if you just blanket forgive and you don't really deal with the work, those feelings are always going to be there and they're always going to come out in some other symptom.
Hmm. I agree.
So I created all of that. Those three phases. The first phase is awareness. A lot of these people, most of these people come to me, they just had the symptom. Okay. And they say, what's wrong with me? I said, well, usually what's happening is that your symptoms are the result of stuffing and storing feelings that you
Mhm.
had, probably from your childhood. And he said, I'm not aware. I'm not, well, think about it in a second. What don't you want to feel? And then they start going into it. And then awareness, they get more awareness. Then as more awareness comes, they can go to the second phase, which is to really go back. Like I just explained to you, they go back in time. They get the feelings really up. And then the third phase is they complete it, the process by confronting the source. I call it the source. So it takes time. It's not a short therapy at times. It depends on how courageous the person is to feel these feelings and how willing they are to confront the source. So it depends on them and how willing they
Mhm.
are. That's how the time frame works.
So we were talking earlier about, and we said that we were going to go back to this. Can you tell me about your sister?
Yeah. So I use that therapy
Hmm.
to heal me
Hmm.
because the other therapies that I were in were not working. Wasn't enough. I wanted to be free of most of my anger or all of it, and I wanted to feel peaceful. So I
Hmm.
had to go back and relive all that stuff, some of the what I told you. So I use it to heal me and heal my clients, the people I work with. My sister was abused. I left the house. I couldn't wait to get out. I went to go to college. I went, and she was still being abused by my mother. She was being verbally abused,
Hmm.
and my mother, she had so many symptoms. One of them, she was OCD with cleaning, and everything had to be perfect. And and
Hmm.
if there was a little dot or whatever it was, I spilled a little milk. That's when I got hit. So,
Hmm.
so something like that. My sister's sometimes her room wasn't perfect, but what my mother would do is she would dump all the drawers of my sister's dresser in the middle of the room, and just everything on the whatever was on the dresser, whatever books, clothes, just piled up there, and she would just leave it. So my mother was torturing her too. She just didn't beat her. I was really upset that I should have when I was before I left college. I says I don't want you hitting her. I don't want you hurting her either.
The
Or
thing
I would
about
have called.
psychological abuse is that there's no physical proof. So it's
Right,
like somebody, and I've said this before, somebody hits you and you can say, here, I have a bruise.
right,
But somebody abuses you psychologically, sometimes we feel like, well, maybe I'm too sensitive, or how do I tell other people what's going on? There's no proof. And then they
right,
just gaslight you. No, I didn't do
right,
that, right?
correct.
So your book, which I have here, Give Back the Pain, Emotional Healing Through Source Completion Therapy, which I have actually read myself. One of my favorite things I have to tell you is that I enjoy the stories that you
Mhm.
give in the very beginning.
Mhm.
I just I think that storytelling is the best way for people to understand what's going on. I think it's a great way to give people information without it feeling like we're reading a science book or, some sort of a textbook. So I like
Exactly.
the way that you wrote the story, and you said your wife was the editor, which is fun.
She did. She liked editing, and she says, "Bob, you wrote this?" I said, "Yeah, I wrote it." She said, "It's really good."
It's much cheaper that way. Let me tell you, I have an editor and it's significantly expensive. So,
I know. I know. So I was lucky in that. My wife is
Mhm.
very supportive always, or through my my hard times when I was wanting to get better. So she was always there to support me. My sister, I regret. I went to my sister with this. I said, I don't want to give the real name because but my sister, I said, I feel every day that I'm sorry when I left you, I didn't do more
Mhm.
to at least stop mom in some way. I'm sorry. And she says, I know you don't have to feel guilty about it. I'm doing fine now, and I don't blame you for leaving as soon as you could, and I understand it. So she says, Bob, I don't want you to feel guilty anymore. I'm glad that she's doing well, but I still, I don't feel guilty. I feel regret a little bit that I couldn't do something. My father wasn't doing enough, so I feel guilty that I didn't do more.
You took that on. I have days where, and not to cut you off, but I have days, my brother and I were both abused. He was We were both physically abused by our mother, but he was physically abused by our father when we'd go see him, and I wasn't. My dad loved to, do the same thing that your mom did, right? There was the emotional and the psychological abuse with me,
Right.
but he never um, physically abused me, which I always thought was interesting because he beat the crap out of his wives. But so why not me? I actually always felt like he didn't love me enough to hit me.
Right.
But as an
Well,
adult, I go back to I still feel bad that my brother was so badly beaten by him.
right. So you understand how I feel in a
Yeah,
sense. I'm
yeah,
clear.
yeah,
Do you
definitely.
talk to your brother about that?
Yeah, a little bit. So, when
Because
stuff like that,
I see your tears now too.
yeah, 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 a little bit. Some people can't get over it. He
Mhm.
just, sorry, he never healed. So mentally, he cracked in his
Mhm.
own way. And so he doesn't function like I do, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
we talk, but it's very difficult to talk to somebody who's not mentally 100%.
It must be very sad for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Mm.
So please
That's
continue.
all. All right, where was I? I thank you for telling me you like the stories, by the way.
Yeah, I love them.
That was hard writing because those are true. Those are true people, and I just disguised the names. And sometimes they were so close to a person that my first publisher said, "Look, you make this a composite because it's too coming to so close to this person." So I combine two people at times, but they're all true. Everything in there is true, and pieces of me are in there also.
Yeah, I can tell in your writing. We have, we'll wrap up in a little, in a few minutes here. As you continue to share your story, one thing that I do want to ask that you offer is for our listeners some sort of wisdom that they can take with them today that will help them.
Okay, they can heal. You can heal out there. Okay, it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes courage. But you can heal. I've healed, and I've healed thousands. Okay, but it's a process that requires work. It's a three-phase process. It requires you to work at it. But there is hope, and I hope you never give up. That's what I would say.
I
I
love that.
didn't. I
Yeah,
didn't give up.
and you've done a lot of work with it. Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
They can go to my website. It's robertbleck.com. And they can also get the book, Give Back the Pain. It's on Amazon, so they
Hmm.
can get it.
And is your work done virtually?
It's done virtually. Yes, I see people from all over the world, and whoever's close to me that can drive here and they want to come, I do it in my office in my home.
What do you think is different? Because, obviously we all have heard of like, well, most of us has heard of EMDR. I had a
Mm,
doctor on that did ART, which is accelerated resolution therapy, where you kind of go back and you replace the story
right,
in ways that you're more powerful.
right,
There's CBT, there's all of
right.
these various different things. What do you think is different about your approach?
Mine is so feeling oriented. The EMDR and even the CBT, the behavioral stuff. Sometimes they just work on the symptoms.
Hmm.
I'm working on all the feelings that a person stored.
Mm.
That's different. And also in the second phase, they're really going back in time. And the third phase is the confrontation. So none of the therapies that I went or that I studied had all those three in the sequence that I put it. So that's pretty different.
Do any of your clients ever trigger you based on maybe something feeling familiar or bring up some of these things that maybe need to be resolved that you didn't know you were holding on to?
It's a really great question. I've been doing it for years, so I'm really tuned in to just focusing on the persons in front of me.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I can do that. So I stay focused on them, and there's pain and there's suffering.
Mhm.
I empathize with it, but
Yeah.
they're not touching my feelings. They're not doing. I could say, look, what they did, I need to do a little more of,
Mm.
to work on that anger. You know, I'll write to my mother, even though she's not alive anymore, but I'll write to her, or because she said something about art. In the second phase, where they go back in time,
Mhm.
um, I like them to express that also when they're finished with the visualization or the hypnosis. They can do it. Sometimes they want to use art. They could
Hmm.
use art, they could use music. Some of them write songs about the experiences. Some of them just write letters to people. So you could have all of those you could do art therapy, you could do talk therapy, the writing. Um, the EMDR, I've tried that, and you know what my clients say to me, Bob, just let me talk to my mother. I just
Hmm.
want to talk to my mother here. I don't want that. It is not working. So they mostly say that, Bob, let me just go back to what works, what I know works for me,
Hmm.
and that's what they say.
I did EMDR shortly, and I agree, it didn't work for me. I know people who say that it's worked for them, and amazing if it does. I think that there's different tools for different people, and and
Right.
that's why there's so many tools in the toolbox. And I hope that
Correct.
people find the one that works for them.
I hope so
But
too.
yeah, no, I'm on the same page with the EMDR, and there was quite a bit of things that I tried that I actually felt like didn't work for me as well. So I can understand why you felt like you needed to develop your own system.
I did, and one person who tried before they came to me, they were in some rehab and they were trying the CBT. I
Hmm.
gave them a book like this with cognitive stuff, and they said,
Hmm.
I can't do that. I said,
Yeah.
I don't. Do you want to do it? She said, No, no. Let's just go back to what you do. I couldn't even read some of that stuff. Again, it's like if you do work on just symptoms, like saying, which I say in the book, it's like imagine a room filled with dirt and you push it under the rug. You push it all
Yeah.
under the rug.
Yep.
Let's say those are the feelings. And you say, is that clean? No, the room's not really clean. It just the dirt
Right.
is underneath. So,
Right.
so if you just work on a symptom, you're still not getting the feelings out.
Yeah.
So that's the way. If you work on just smoking, if you work on anger, if you just work on an addiction, if you don't get to the source of it. I was pained. I've worked with actresses and actors too,
Hmm.
and they call, they say, look, my therapist and that's not good. They tell me crazy stuff and they give me this story. I said, no, you're not crazy. This is what's going on. And and it's successful. And I forgot what I was going to say.
You're saying I was pain.
Yeah, it's painful. I forgot it. I
That's
lost
okay. That
it.
you've
I
given us so
lost it.
much wisdom outside of that.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny, I actually had a question too, and I lost it as well. But anywho, I think that one, it's beneficial for people to read your book if they do nothing else. I do love the stories. I actually like the one about the dirt. I think it's a very good way of a good way of telling a story so people can visualize it and actually see it.
Right.
That's one of the first stories that you kind of have in there after you go through the personal stories, if I remember.
Right.
But I would say definitely recommend reading your book. And then for those that feel like they need to, they want this. Oh, I know what I was going to say. What is your take on, well, I'm going to tell you my take and I'm going to see what you feel like about this. Like you said, most therapies only address the symptoms. And I feel like
Right.
that's the same thing with medication,
Yes.
that
Oh,
it
I'm
is.
glad you raised that. I'm glad
Yeah.
you raised that.
Yeah. So I'd
I
like
have
to
a
hear.
little different take on that
Mhm.
because I've seen it. It's the science. So what happens is if a person is so stressed from all of what they've been through, they're so torn. What happens is there's two basic chemicals in your brain, serotonin and there's dopamine. That
Mhm.
those are the things I call them the natural body relaxers. Okay,
Right.
they're your natural tranquilizers. Okay, when the stress is so intense and it's for a prolonged time, those natural
Levels.
chemicals
Hmm.
they get depleted.
Hmm.
So what happens is the antidepressants, if you get the right psychiatrist
Hmm.
and the right doctor who work with you, or whoever it is, the medication could be really helpful because what it does, it regenerates those chemicals, and then the person could really work with me. They can
Hmm.
concentrate on the work rather than their symptoms and feeling so depressed. It really helps. It can really help. I've
Hmm.
had really good success with that.
I agree too. I just, in my opinion, it's a short-term tool, not a long-term
Correct.
lifestyle.
Correct.
And so I agree. I don't think that people can come in completely depressed and
Right.
anxious and then try to do the work, especially of reliving things in their past and stuff like that, without some help with the chemicals being in
Yes.
balance and things. I think
Exactly.
that the problem is that in our society that we use it as a band-aid that we never take off.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. So what happens is, as my clients get better and better, they're able to either reduce the chemicals or they get off it.
Yeah. I love that.
So
Well, thank you for,
that's the goal. I do remember what I wanted to say. I
okay,
forgot it. Do I
perfect.
have a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah.
Okay. So I work with actors and actresses. I work with a couple of then but there was two I was just seeing. Robin Williams. You know Robin Williams, the
Yes.
comedian? Okay.
Loved him. Yeah.
Loved him too. And what I would see him acting, and I said, this is diversion. I called these the
Hmm.
symptoms diversionary. He was diverting from feeling, and even when he was not on a show, he would be in maybe a talk show. They would ask him a question, and he'd make a joke out of it, and he'd laugh, he'd be hysterical. I said, he's not working on the source.
Right.
He's a troubled man. And then certainly, and then when I saw documentaries on him, he was on drugs, he womanized, he got depressed. And I said, I could have helped him. I wish I would have known it, and I wish he would have came to me. And Billy Joe was the same way. He had he went to alcohol, and he's still alive, Billy Joe. But I saw a documentary on his life, and they touched on his father a little bit. His father slapped him once, knocked him unconscious. Never was warm to him. Never was gracious to him. Never was loving. Left the family, started another family. They touched on it, and Billy Joel was always empty. So many of his songs were empty, and he was always empty. He went to marriages, relationships,
Mhm.
and never feeling satisfied, never feeling fulfilled. So if he got in touch with really, and he worked on the issues and the pain from his father's lack of love, I think he could have been helped too. So I regret that, not working with him.
The question about that one, right, comes to like, well, then would their art have been as good? Because Robin Williams was so funny because he was diverting from his own pain and his own
Right,
feelings and all those different things. A lot
right.
of these artists, the
Good question.
they come from their pain. They
Right.
use their art to deal with their pain. So I always wonder if they ever were healed, maybe they would be a better human or a happier human, but then would their art suffer?
That's a really good question. I don't have the research on it.
Yeah.
My feeling is they could do both. They could feel the pain and do wonderful work without it as well. They
Hmm.
feel the pain and they can do good work both ways.
Yeah.
They don't have
That's
to stay with the pain.
Yeah, I love that too. We can end on that. You don't have to stay with the pain.
Right.
Thank you. I will put all of your information in our description so people can find you,
Thank you.
should they feel touched by you. And I really appreciate you sharing your personal story and all of your knowledge with us.
And it's been my pleasure to be here. I enjoyed it immensely and I enjoyed you.
Thank you. Likewise.
So if you ever need me or want me to come on again or whatever, give me a call.
I
Right.
would love that. Thank you. All right.
Anytime.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks again.
If this story spoke to you, let's keep the healing going. Visit barbiemoreno.com for my online course, Awakening Your Worth and Healing Energy sessions, one-on-one coaching, and your free healing guide. Your next step is waiting.